Welcome, everybody. We are live, Washington WREIA, March 2021. Thank you so much for joining me. You might be joining me on YouTube or maybe Facebook. If you're with me again tonight, feel free to say hello to everyone. As I've said many times, sometimes it feels I'm just talking into a blank screen. So feel free to say hello as you kind of join us tonight. If you can believe it, we've been at this now for 1 year. March of 2020 was the day of reckoning for all of this coronavirus and pandemic. And we've been coming to you with Washington WREIA virtually now for the past year. It is just hard to believe. And again, I say this often, I do miss you guys. I miss seeing you. I miss connecting with you. I've certainly seen some of you over the past year, but to me, it just doesn't seem quite the same as getting together at the Women's Club. But we're here and we, again, try to make the best of it, trying to give you some great information on real estate investment and what's going on in the market. We have a great subject tonight. Sarah Davis, aloha. Sarah escaped this area a number of years ago now, and she is in Hawaii. So Sarah, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Good to hear from you. Again, if you're kind of tuning in tonight, feel free to say hello. Certainly, if you have a question, you can post that in the comments, and I will try to get to those as we walk through. Jim, good to see you. Jim has recently moved back to the area from Colorado, so it's good to have him. John, wow, great to see you. Sandy, I haven't talked to Sandy in a while. Hopefully, she is still on the Eastern Shore, doing well. So it's great to see everyone and saying hello. As I said tonight, I believe we have a great subject. Before we get going, before we start, this is the month, and unfortunately we're virtual, so I can't give out my free gifts. As you know, I'm a big basketball fan, and we are in the middle of March Madness. Thank goodness that March Madness has returned. I've been a happy camper these past three or four days watching games, and in fact, I know all of you are going to turn this off right around 8 o'clock when we finish. Get your beverage of choice, get your snack of choice, and settle in to watch Maryland go ahead and defeat Alabama tonight. So looking forward to March Madness. And you know, every year I've always asked you a couple different questions about March Madness. And again, if you got some free time, these are a few this month. I want you all to go research and find out how many Big Ten teams are in the tournament this year. I know that's very important to you. Where Gonzaga, the -- seed in the whole tournament, where are they located? If you know that, maybe throw that on the screen. And then finally, what historic gym are they playing March Madness in the suburb of Indianapolis? If you know any of those answers, throw them up on the screen and be curious to see if our basketball knowledge has gotten any better in the last year. Because the last few years when I asked these questions at the WREIA meeting, everyone just looked stone-faced. It was really difficult to give away $10 gift cards to folks that had no clue. Sarah, Washington for Gonzaga, you're right. Give me a city. You're pretty close there. Go Maryland. I love it. Good to see you guys on the screen. All right. So the one advantage of virtual, we don't have to waste a lot of downtime. We can kind of just jump right into our subject matter tonight. And what I'm going to talk about tonight, our title is Why I Defaulted on My Mortgage. And I want to go through with you some of the reasons that I did that. And I want to show you kind of spend a little time in the background, spend a little time on my journey through this, and then also end the evening with some of the results, and then more importantly, some of the opportunity. Gary McKeithen came in with Hinkle Fieldhouse. Gary, you are right. That is a special place. That is where they filmed the movie Hoosiers, if you're a basketball junkie. And maybe more importantly, I've been sending checks out that way for the past 4 years. My son, Jack, goes to Butler University, and Hinkle Fieldhouse is on the campus of Butler University. So they were excited to host the Final Four, although not a lot of people can get in unless you're family or friends of the players. But still, it was a great event for Butler and for Hinkle Fieldhouse. If you're a basketball fan and you have never seen the inside of Hinkle, if you're ever out that way, it is worth the 25-minute journey out to Butler University, walking through that stadium. Again, I'm kind of a nut for basketball, so I was excited to see that when Jack decided going to a Butler for college. Anyways, as we move on, why I defaulted on the mortgage. As I said, we're going to talk about kind of 4 different areas, a little background, the journey, going to talk to you about specific banks, kind of the result of some of this. And then also the most important part toward the end of the presentation night or the talk tonight, I certainly want to talk to you about opportunity. And opportunity is obviously what we're all looking for in the real estate investment world, and how we can take advantage, if you will, of some of the things that are going on with some of the banks, some of the economy, and where we can spend some of our marketing dollars, and where we can focus on getting a few more deals. And as I said, as I go through, if you do have any questions, specific or not specific, feel free. There is no dumb question. At the end, you will see my cell phone. A lot of you have the Washington WREIA or my personal email. Feel free to throw those out. I'll take a phone call, text, email, however way you, Facebook posts, whatever way you want to communicate. And I'd be happy to answer those questions and help you maybe go a little bit deeper, because obviously in a 40-minute format, we can't go over everything at these WREIA meetings. All right, so the background. As I said, folks, we've been at this for a year. That is hard to believe that we've been kind of locked in, if you will, or everyone's been affected, obviously, by this pandemic, some more than others. Obviously, there's been a great deal of pain, great deal of business loss, great deal of death, and a lot of things going on in our world. So certainly a very important time in the history of this country, certainly in our lifetimes. I don't think most of us have ever experienced anything like this. But March of 2020, when everything kind of came to a screeching halt, literally this time last year, a lot of us thought, I believe, that this would be something that we'd be going through for 3, 4, maybe 6 months. Now, again, some of that might have been rhetoric from the media, rhetoric from the government. Who knows? No one really to blame there, in my opinion. I don't think anyone really knew. But I think a lot of us thought that, okay, we're going to kind of walk through this spring, maybe the summer, and by the fall of 2020, we'd kind of be back to somewhat normal. We could go on. But during that time, a lot of things happened. And you remember, I mean, things just shut down. Sports were all canceled. A lot of travel was canceled, a lot of theater, a lot of things were just literally shut down. And for a period there from about mid-March to end of April, it was like a ghost town. It still is to some degree, but it's returning a little bit more back to normal. But during that time, it was a ghost town. I remember driving up 95, going through Baltimore at about 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and there was no cars. Literally, I was the only one on the road. I thought, the rapture occurred and I was the only one sitting on earth. I mean, it was bizarre. There was just nothing going on. So that was a really scary time for a lot of folks, certainly. And no one really kind of knew what the future held there. So during about that time, the banks started coming out with different programs. The government came out and announced this Paycheck Protection Program. I'm not sure if any of you took advantage of that. That was basically a grant from the government that if you used for rent or for utilities or for employees to keep employees on the payroll, you could apply for this. And it was relatively simple. It was not any 30, 40, 50 pages of application. It was relatively simple. The banks also started to announce, because I think they were getting tremendously nervous, that all of a sudden there was just a halt in the velocity of the economy. Everything stopped. And folks, we are a economy that is trickle down. I mean, it's a rotating thing. I get paid, I pay this person pays that person. And when everything stopped, I think the banks all of a sudden started going, oh my gosh, we are in trouble here. So they started announcing forbearance plans, basically that you could delay your mortgage payment up to 3 months. And in fact, the government-backed mortgages basically said you could delay your mortgage for 12 months in 90-day increments. And so I remember hearing this. I remember hearing this on the news, and I remember hearing this on the internet, different ways I can get my news and my information. I thought, gosh, is this really true? I mean, can we literally call up our banks and get them to delay a mortgage payment for 3 months with very little or no documentation or anything? Now, at the time, and I know a lot of you are experiencing the same things, I all of a sudden got really, really nervous here. We kind of pushed back or held back on the renovations that we had going on. I remember one rental house that we had that we were getting prepared for work. I stopped it totally. I found one painter and myself, and we worked in that house for a week and a half because we didn't know what was going to happen. I started getting phone calls from tenants. I had a commercial tenant, a great commercial tenant, someone that had a booming business that literally called me up the next week and said, John, I'm filing bankruptcy. He was in the event business. He put up high-end scaffolding and high-end lighting for political events and for concerts and for all sorts of corporate events. And literally in a week, all of his business for 2020 canceled. And he said, I'm out of business. I'm filing bankruptcy. And I want to let you know that there's going to be no rent. I will move out of the space, but there's going to be no rent. And all of a sudden, a nice long-term commercial tenant just disappeared, vaporized overnight. I also got a call from a restaurant lease that I have a restaurant. He had just signed a new 7-year, one of my largest leases ever signed, a 7-year, very lucrative lease beginning in February 2020. And now here we are in March 2020. He didn't know if he's going to have a business anymore. So we had to negotiate with him. And then I have multiple residential properties here and in other states that started to be real nervous and started saying, gosh, how are we going to get through this? So I heard this thing from the banks and I thought, you know what? I'm going to default on my mortgage. They told me it doesn't affect your credit. They're not going to report late fees. They're just going to literally delay your mortgage payment for 90 days. And at the end of 90 days, we'll see what happens. Now, I called up a number of banks that I have properties with. You get to hear some of my notes. And I started delaying some of these mortgages. Now, let me talk to you about some of these banks. First bank was, now folks, remember, I lived through 2008 like a lot of you did. There was none of this going on. Banks just didn't take a phone call from a random borrower and say, yes, we'll delay you for 90 days. No worry. What's your loan number? Great. You're delayed 90 days. You'll receive a letter in the mail. I mean, it was unheard of. It was unheard of. And I really couldn't believe it. And I got on the phone with the first bank that I called was Chase. I own a rental property with a Chase-backed mortgage. Now, Chase is a large bank, and a lot of my rentals are financed long-term, fixed rates, big banks. Some small banks, but a lot of big banks. And I called Chase, and I said, I'd like to delay my mortgage. First of all, you were on hold for 3, 4, 5 hours. I read today someone is on hold for 42 hours. 42 hours they were on hold with Chase Bank. It was unbelievable. So all of a sudden now we could delay our mortgage payments for 90 days. I did that with these banks. I did it with Chase. I did it with Wells Fargo. I did it with Burke & Herbert, local bank. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Bank of America. I did it with Specialized Loan Servicing. I did it with a bank called United Bank. And I did it with the bank, one of my mortgages during the time got sold to a servicing company called Shellpoint. Now let me go through it real quick so I won't bore you too much with all the details, but I got boxes now. I got boxes of letters and correspondence. I took every phone call. I wanted to learn exactly what was going on. Number one, to protect myself and protect my business. And number two, to figure out what was going to happen with these delayed mortgages. How were they going to play these out? Where was the opportunity in this? Folks, I've always been about opportunity. I realized it, no wait, and I realize it today, that whenever there is chaos, whenever there is a down market, now is our time to strike. Now it's very difficult. Now in 08, I've told this many times, I had 33 hard money loans that went sour, 33 of them. It was hard and I lost a lot of money. And it was a period of working through these loans. And so, but I also knew there's opportunity. And during that time, I had the ability with some investors to take down a lot of rental properties that have done very, very well for me over the last 7, 8 years. So whenever there's a down market, there's opportunity, but you have to find where that is. And then you have to market your services right into that pain, right into that market. And you'll come up with some very, very good deals. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Again, as I go through, if you have questions or anything, feel free to throw them on the screen. So I made these phone calls. The thing that we didn't know, that no one knew, is what was going to happen after that 90 days. Were they going to call the loan? Meaning now all of a sudden we heard rumors that you're going to have to come up with 90 days of payments plus continue making those payments going forward. Folks, now for me, it was okay because I did have a lot of pain in some of the rental properties, but I put money away every month in a separate account. I literally opened a bank account with United Bank, a separate account, a JBN Realty separate account. And as I got money for my rents and I got monies other places, I made sure that that account was full and I was ready to pay these back payments back if I had to, But I was really kind of curious how this was going to play out because, folks, it would have been a bloodbath if people had to start paying these loans back in 90 days. The full amount, say you owed a $1,500 mortgage payment. So you have $4,500 of payment you have to pay back in July of 2020 plus $1,500 with no rental income or maybe no income if it was your own personal house. So it was interesting. So I played this through. So let me give you a little bit of some of the results here, some of the things that I experienced, and then we'll go from there. Chase Bank is a large bank. I'm going to lump Chase Bank and Wells Fargo into these two banks, big banks, as you know. Very simple to delay the mortgage. No problem. No questions asked, no forms to fill out, nothing to sign. They basically said, great, you are 90 days in moratorium. July 1st, if you can make a payment, great. If you can't, call us back. And that's what I did. I just kept those 90 days. I kept them in a separate account. And come July 1st, I started making payments. And I started seeing the reaction, if you will, or what they were going to do. And quite honestly, they were quiet. They didn't call it. They didn't say I had to make it up. They just really, the correspondence was very light with Wells Fargo and Chase, those two banks. I'll tell you the result of those things here in a minute. Burke and Herbert, let's talk about that. It's a local regional bank a lot of you have heard. I own a multi-unit in Alexandria, Virginia. And I bought this many, many, many years ago. And in fact, when I bought it, I was working with Burke and Herbert Bank, and Taylor Burke, who is the owner of the bank, I actually got to know him a little bit. And I actually drove to the bank, and he actually got in my car and he drove to this property because it's literally 1 mile away or so from the headquarters there on King Street in Alexandria. And we walked the property, and I told him what we paid for it, and I told him, what I needed, and he okayed the loan right there and then. Nothing much more than that. He knew the property, he knew the area, and he knew the value of the asset, and he wrote the loan. Well, that was many, many years ago. Time went on, I paid off the loan. Then I decided I wanted a credit line, so I got another loan, paid that loan off. Then I recently got, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, I got another loan, and I was paying that loan every single month, principal and interest paid down. Right during this pandemic, okay, my 5-year anniversary came up. This was kind of a commercial loan. Every 5 years, they kind of reset the mortgage rate and reset the amortization. So you're paying it down, but they're still having a look at the asset every 5 years. Well, folks, when I went in for that, the interest rate, the new reset interest rate was going to come down. It was going to come down significantly. I was going to save $300 or $400 a month on this payment. The value of the property went up 3.5 fold versus what I owed. So I owed basically 25 cents on the dollar. So if a property's worth 100 grand, I owe $25,000 on it. Okay. I submitted all my paperwork, they asked for more paperwork, submitted that. One of the tenants in this building, okay, it's 3-unit, one of the tenants in this building lost their job. They were in the hospitality business and they lost their job. And I didn't have that income coming in, still don't, for many, many months. And it went to the underwriter, and the underwriter said, well, based on this, and I see some, tenants not paying at a couple commercial buildings, and I see your exposure is too great to tenants, and we're not going to renew this loan. Well, folks, I had a relationship with Burke and Herbert for 20 years, and they refused to reset this loan. Now, remember, this is not even a refinance. This is a reset. I have a very good credit, very good net worth, and a property that appraised for literally 3.5 times what I owed on the mortgage, with the rate being reset going down. Cash flow of very strong cash flow. Burke and Herbert refused to do that loan. They were that nervous about what was going to happen with the pandemic that they didn't even want any more exposure to a property 1 mile away. I called the president of the bank, got him literally on the phone, and he said he'd look into it, never heard back from him. And it was getting to the point where they were putting pressure. They were putting pressure on me to start with another bank or pay off a loan. So long and short of it is, Burke and Herbert, I'll never do business with them again. They forced me to, I went out and got a very reasonable private loan. The reason I did that and the reason I'm fine with it is that I'm taking that property and doing a tax-free exchange with it. So I won't own it long. I'll pay off that private loan, and I'll buy another property and use that property as collateral to get another loan. But they handled it very poorly. And I was unbelievably upset. And I could not believe this is how I've been treated after being a 20-year customer of a local bank with a solid property. But they were nervous. That's the only explanation I can give you. They were nervous about this pandemic. But that was all. Bank of America. Bank of America was a large credit line. Now, Bank of America has done something very, very interesting. That credit line's been out, used, secured by property for a number of years. And I decided again to default on this because I thought, hey, let's see what happens. I thought, when I first started this, I thought there might be some discounting here. I thought I might be able to kind of negotiate better rates, get some discounting. But Bank of America was very, very quiet. Now, they just literally recently came out and said, if you make the next X amount of payments, we will take the money that you owe and put it on the back of the loan. Okay, so they are really basically re-engineering this loan, renegotiating the loan. And again, I'm fine with that because this line of credit in particular, I have it secured against a property that is being sold. I'm going to use those funds. I'm going to pay off that credit line, and that will be the end of that. So it's interesting how all of these things are playing out. Chase Bank is willing, literally this week, they're willing to offer me a 40-year mortgage to put the 3 months back in the loan and stretch the loan out to 40 years. It's fascinating what these banks are willing to do. And this is going to lead us to our discussion on opportunity here as we go. But it's amazing what these banks are willing to do. They're not, well, number one, they can't foreclose, but they're not running to foreclosure. Let's talk about commercial property. I did the same thing with commercial property. I thought, well, let's see if they're going to play. Let's see if they'll put the loan in arrears, if you will. I have two loans actually with United Bank. United Bank was the simplest process I've ever, couldn't believe it. I called them up and basically said, listen, you've had this asset. You have the rents in your bank. You've seen I've never missed a payment for many ever, never missed a payment on it. This resets every 5 years too. You have good debt coverage, you have good equity in the property. Are you willing to delay or forbear or whatever, put in forbearance 3 months payments? They said, sure, we will do that. And in fact, as you go along, if you decide, we'll just go ahead and put those on the back of your balance of your loan, and we'll just keep rolling on. We'll just extend it for another 3 months. So they were, but again, folks, this is the most simple process that we've ever been through. I mean, there is no long paperwork or anything like that. It was a dream. It was a dream. It was free money. There was no late fee. There was no damage to your credit. There really was no reason not to do it. Again, I was looking for opportunity, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute as I corresponded with these folks, as I took the phone calls, as I called the banks, as I tried to find people within the bank, as I was navigating my own forbearance of opportunity to people I could talk to, and where there might be some chance to work with that bank. So United Bank, Bank of America, Burke and Herbert, Wells Fargo, Chase, and then finally a bank, not even a bank, servicing company called ShellPoint. Now, one of my loans during this process was sold to ShellPoint Servicing out of Texas. Again, I put them in the category of Bank of Burke and Herbert. They have been relentless. You can't call them up and do any kind of action over the phone. They wanted mounds and mounds of paperwork. But since my loan was sold from Chase, okay, there was already 3 months in arrears. I didn't bother paying it off yet. I wanted to see how it happened. And what happened is the loan was sold. And ShellPoint, so I owed 3 months. I decided to make one back payment. Now I was continuing making my payments, but I was 3 months in arrears. And I made one payment just to see how that would affect the loan. Well, let me tell you, ShellPoint has been relentless. In fact, I'm surprised the phone hasn't rang 2 or 3 times during this presentation. They call and call and call, and they are relentless. They are not interested in any kind of forbearance or renegotiation or putting it on the end. I mean, I've had numerous FedExes that they're going to foreclose. Now, they can't foreclose. The state's not allowing foreclosures. We're going to get into that in a minute, but they've threatened, pay your bills over the phone. I mean, they've been a collector, and I take the phone calls and I have fun with them. And I said, oh, you can't foreclose yet, or what would you do if you foreclosed? And blah, blah, blah. Again, they're not charging me late fees. There's nothing, no ding on my credit. The money's sitting in the bank. So when I decide to pay it off, I'll pay off the 90 days. But ShellPoint has been tough, really, really tough. So those are some of my experiences with some of the banks. I don't know if you've had some of the experiences, folks that have had to put things in forbearance, either out of job loss or income loss or business failure, or maybe one of your renters hasn't been paying you and it's been tough to make those mortgage payments without any rent coming in. I get all of that. I get all of that. And so if you use it strategically, or even if you used it, I think that was smart. Again, you don't want to get behind on something where you can't catch up, but the banks are very forgiving right now, and they are really working with folks. Because as you know, during this time, the state of Maryland, Governor Hogan, okay, yes, Jim, Chase sold that loan to ShellPoint. So now I'm working with ShellPoint, and they're a pain in the neck. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't have that much contact with the bank. The reason they're paying the neck is because I still have 60 days in forbearance, and they are just all over me. They're all over me. I find a little bit of, I'm still trying to find the niche, the opportunity there. I don't think there is going to be any, because they're a servicer. So I don't even know who owns the loan, to tell you the truth. But during this time too, a lot of you know that the state of Maryland, state of Virginia, DC, they implemented state of emergencies, which basically stopped a lot of legal proceedings. Both state and federal initiated these eviction moratorium. And so there hasn't been any evictions. I understand that's going to expire at the end of March. I don't really know what that means, because there is so much backlog in some of these things that even as they expire, it's going to take quite a long time for people to walk through some of this process. So let's talk a little bit about the opportunity here. So this is my experience, and I'm sure those of you listening tonight have had your own. It's been an interesting journey, if you will. It's only been, gosh, it seems like longer than a year to me. It's gone fast, but it's also seemed like forever before we can kind of get somewhat back to normal. My hope is, as people are vaccinated and warmer weather comes and people are have a little more understanding of this, that slowly things are back to normal. I don't know if you've seen traffic patterns. I was out last Saturday. There was just a lot more traffic on the Beltway. It seems like people are kind of coming out of their houses a little bit more, and things are getting back to a little bit normal. But let's talk about opportunity. Again, if you have questions on any of this, fire away. If you have any experience with any of this, fire away. Be happy to answer that. But here's the opportunity. This is where I see it. This is where I see where we're going with some of this. Number one, and I mentioned this last year, and I'm still on this, and I still believe this is where there's some great opportunity. And that is in the whole world of non-performing notes. Now, if you've never gotten educated, if you've never learned about notes, and there's performing notes, okay? There's notes that are actually being paid every single month, right? There's no issue. Those notes, in some cases by banks, believe it or not, or by individuals, are sold. They're sold, and the future payments are sold at a discount. And the reason they're sold at a discount is the value of money, the time value of money. And the reason people will sell those is because something's come up in their life where they need the capital, where they need the money. Maybe it's a college education. Maybe they've gotten a squeeze on a rental property. Maybe they've lost income. Whatever the case may be, they'll sell those performing notes. And then the same is true with a non-performing note. When the note is not being paid, and institutions, small regional banks, hard money lenders, private lenders, all sorts of people that have taken back mortgages, owner financing, they will sell these at a discount because they're, number one, either need the capital, or they're afraid and don't know the process and don't have the timeline maybe necessary in order to collect on this bad note. So that's number one. Non-performing notes, notes that aren't being paid, are a great opportunity. And I've mentioned this before. I bought a number of these over the last year, and let me give you an example of a few. I bought a non-performing note from a private owner, first mortgage on a large home out in Boyd's, Maryland. This sits on a couple acres. This house is worth all day long $750,000 to $800,000. It needs a little bit of work. Someone certainly could live in it. It's only about 20 years old. And I bought the note, I'm owed in the 570, 580 range. And I bought the note a lot cheaper. All right. Now, where's my opportunity? There was a second mortgage on this house owned by Bank of America, hence going back to the Bank of America. First thing I thought about was, okay, let me go back through my letters and through my notes and see if I can get any contact with Bank of America. And through my forbearance, I found the attorney that works for them here in the local area that at least I could have a conversation with to see if they're willing to take a discount or basically sign over their second mortgage, because their second mortgage is in the $500,000 range, if you can believe it. They gave this loan during the go-go days, and now it's non-performing, obviously. So I had the opportunity to talk to the attorney, and I made a letter, made an offer through a letter, and I'm still waiting word. I don't have any real expectations they're going to take it, because Bank of America is huge, and I don't even know if the attorney can get to the right person to talk to about taking this. But I do know that the opportunity is when the state lifts the state of emergency and I can foreclose, and there will be a backlog, but when I can foreclose, I will make money on the difference between what I paid for the note and what someone will pay at auction for the house. I will be able to collect all that principal. Now, if nobody bids at the auction, I will be there. I will bid in my note amount, and I will renovate the house, and I will sell it and make a very, very, very nice return. I've also bought a first mortgage on a house in Capitol Heights. I bought this from a bank that I networked into. Again, I have to wait on some of this now. Some of this I do have to wait because these are non-performing. But I bought it at a level where I can wait, right? I can wait and I can foreclose down the road, or I can work with the owner on this one. I'm still trying to work out some kind of refinance or some kind of opportunity to refinance, get a nice return on my money, and let them continue living in the house. The third one I bought was on a property in Lanham. And this was actually a second mortgage. Now, when I bought it, it was somewhat performing, okay? This was secured by a home. The owner of the home had a business. The business has been hit by the pandemic. And I am getting some payments here or there, with the hope that once his business recovers, and he recovers, that they can refinance, or he wants to sell the home. So there'll be a trigger as we come out of this, and his cash flow continues to grow, get back to more normal. I'm working with him. I'm in touch with him. He will probably sell that home and pay off the first mortgage, which is performing, by the way. He has kept his first mortgage performing, and my second mortgage will be paid off. The reason I bought a second is I have enough room, if I have to foreclose, in order to pay off the first, receive my money back, and make a profit on the house. And so non-performing mortgages is a huge opportunity still, and I continue to see that. As some of these folks in forbearance cannot renegotiate, cannot pay that, there's going to be opportunity there with some notes being bought. So if you foreclose, the second mortgage goes away. Is that correct? Ski slopes. I love it. I don't know who you are, but I love ski slopes. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. On the Boy Scout. Yes. If I foreclose on the first mortgage and they don't protect it, which Bank of America will not, they won't even show up at the auction, they will be wiped out. All the junior debt will be wiped out. If you own a second mortgage, you're going to have to protect your position, right? You're going to have to be there to protect your position so you don't get wiped out. But knowing that, and the whole reason that we bought the property, that makes a lot of sense. NPL seconds. Yes, I know Charlie is into notes, and I know he is. He's been buying some of those too. So that's one opportunity. Second opportunity is in this eviction world. Okay, in this eviction world. Thought someone knocking on my door. Excuse me for that. Folks, this is a problem. This is a big problem. Now, I know there's camps out there that say all landlords are rich and evil, and there's a camp out there that says all tenants are nightmares. Well, it always falls somewhere in the middle, right? There are some good landlords. There are some good tenants. There's some bad landlords. There's some bad tenants. But this whole eviction moratorium is a huge, huge problem. Okay, is a huge problem. Right now, and we put this in one of our emails, there is a backlog in Montgomery County alone. Okay, Montgomery County alone of 14,000 evictions. Alex, I see your question. I'm going to get to that. 14,000 evictions are backlogged. Now, I was fortunate. I had an eviction that was filed at the end of February 2020. So I was in queue. And if you were in queue before the eviction moratorium, you could still continue. I worked with this tenant. I've tried to be patient with this tenant. They were just a nightmare, and they just were not paying. Now, my eviction hearing got delayed, and finally it came up in the end of October 2020. He had given me, he was $11,000 behind. He gave me $3,000. So, folks, he was $8,000 behind. They heard this in October of 2020, so it took them 6 months to get the hearing. I got the judgment, but the judgment was for $8,000. Remember, I could not reignite my amount that I was owed at that time. The court wouldn't let me. So 2020 is $8,000. I didn't get the ability to evict until today, March 22nd, November, December, January, February, end of March, another 5 months. This is the scary part of this. If these folks realize this, they could have paid me the $8,000 and there had been nothing I could have done. I could not have done the eviction. They could have stayed in that house, and literally for $8,000 now going forward, they could be in that house probably for 3 years. Fortunately, last Thursday, we went by the house and we noticed they had moved out. And so we were saved. And I'm happy that they left me with a house that's a mess. They left me with a $2,000 water bill. It's costing me money, but at least now I have possession of the house. I can get it re-upped, and actually going to be selling this property because we've done pretty well on it. That's scary. That's scary. Let me give you another one. I have another one in Rockville. In Rockville, he hasn't paid. I went to the courthouse. I filed the eviction. They took the paperwork, but there's no court date. I asked the lady, when do you reasonably think that we will get a court date? And this was the beginning of this year. She said, don't expect it until 2022. Folks, 2022. This gentleman could be in this house for 2 years before I can even get, well, over a year before I can even get a hearing. I mean, it could be 2.5 years. This is scary stuff. This is really scary stuff. Now I'm working with this tenant. I've offered him money to move out. He had lost a job. He'd been a good tenant before. I'm trying my best. But folks, you can't go on without receiving any rent and having mortgage payment, property taxes, and everything else. In fact, Greenbelt just sent me a letter on some property in Greenbelt. Alex, I know you're from, you buy properties in Prince George's County. Maybe you have a rental in Greenbelt City. And if you do, you can't raise the rent. $500 a day penalty fee if you raise the rent, and you can't charge late fees. So now City Greenbelt is dictating to us as owners of property in this great United States on what we can and cannot do. Does that scare you? It should. It should scare you. They're dictating to us what we can do with private property. They're not putting any onus on the renter. We're never going to see that money. You think I'm going to see the $20,000 this person in Germantown owed me? I'm never going to see that. Folks, this is a bad situation for not only the landlords, but I understand the tenants too. And the same one in Alexandria, this is something else that's going on, okay? And if you're a landlord, you're experiencing this. There are programs to help landlords with lost rent. Great. In order for you to receive that payment, you have to promise not to evict. Okay, fair enough. What's the payment? Well, on $20,000 in Germantown, Montgomery County was giving me $4,000 not to evict. That's craziness. What can it would take me 3 months to even get the $4,000. Now in Alexandria, it looks like they're going to make up a good portion of the back rent. I've been working with this tenant. She's in the hospitality business. She's worked every angle she can to get another job, and I believe she will cure it with the help from the county and the agencies, and I think we'll be fine. But folks, these are big problems, and there's opportunity within this. Finally, opportunity. Foreclosures, right? Foreclosures. There's going to be a lot of foreclosures. There just is. It's not now, but the backlog is going to be tremendous. DC and PG told us we had to waive late fees as well. That's funny. I have not gotten that from DC or PG. I must not be. I must haven't received my letter yet. Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. I think if you're a responsible landlord, quite honestly, and you have a tenant that has been a good tenant and they've made their payments, and all of a sudden the pandemic hit and their world went to hell. I think I know I don't really aggressively get late fees. I try to work with people. I try to give them a break. But let me tell you that I don't like people dictating whether I can or I can't. I try to work with tenants, and I'm sure a lot of landlords out there have and will. I know they are. I know we are as working with our commercial tenants. We've given some huge abatements of rent just to try to keep people moving. They're good operators. They always paid the rent before. This is an unusual circumstance, and we understand that. But I hate when people are dictating that. All right, foreclosures. Folks, foreclosures are going to happen. So you better get really versed on foreclosures and auctions and online auctions and get a little deposit money together, because it's going to come and there's going to be a wave of them, because not all these things are going to be cured. Even though the banks are really trying, they're trying to work with people the best they can, but there's just some people that are not going to be able to continue to stay in their homes. Now, a lot of these homes have equity. Okay. A lot of these homes have equity. So, they might be able to sell them when they have to, and that might be an opportunity for you to buy some things too. Let's go back to, the evictions. What are we doing? I jumped ahead. I saw a few questions here that I'll answer, but what I would do and what we're doing, we're systematically creating lists. We're systematically reaching out to landlords all across the areas that we want to invest in. I bought one recently in Temple Hills from a property that had a tenant. It went vacant. The landlord was tired. They didn't want to do the necessary fix up, and they sold it to me as is. I'll make, after we, fix this property up, we'll make close to $75,000 on this deal. That's opportunity right out of this crisis. There's another call actually I just got today from a wholesaler. Actually, a wholesaler has a property in Cap Heights. Maybe you received this too. I don't know. This person doesn't broadcast these broadly, but maybe you heard about it. And they're selling the house, but you can't get in, and there's tenants in it, and you can't see it. And the deal was a little skinny. And when I say skinny, that means tight. That means everything has to go well to make a fair profit. And I'm not buying skinny deals. I've done that. I've been there. I'm not doing that ever again. So you can't get in. So I told them, listen, if I can't get in and see it, I'm not interested. But if the price was right, I would. But the price was just not right. It was too much. It was a deal, but everything had to go right. And if you don't get a chance to see the inside with a tenant in there not paying rent and knowing how long it might take to get them out, be very careful of that. So there's opportunity there. Systematically creating lists of landlords and reaching out to them, and in areas you want to invest. And there's going to be opportunity there, but you have to make those communications, and you have to do that. Foreclosures I mentioned. Let's hit a few of these. We had a few good questions here from Alex. When you buy a first lien and there is a second, upon foreclosure, doesn't the surplus go to the second lien holder? Yes, that is absolutely true. In my case, let's say the house is worth $750,000. Let's say I'm owed $570 or so, depending on when we get to the auction. Let's say it's $570,000 once I get to the auction, and I'm first bid. I bid in at $570, and a homeowner comes in and says $575, $580, $590. House goes for $600,000. Well, when the auditor gets it at the foreclosure in the county, the first $570,000 of monies goes to me to pay off my mortgage, and I will make between what I paid for the mortgage, and trust me, it was a lot less than $570,000, and $570,000. That's my profit. And there's other costs to the foreclosure. There's trustees fees, there's accounting fees, there's different fees. But anything left over, you are absolutely right, Alex, it goes to that second trust holder. Very rare for a second trust holder to get much money. It happens, and they will get it, but very, very rare. Very, very rare. Excuse me. Let's see. Is there another question up here I didn't answer? Mark, thank you. Mark's a loan officer. If you need to talk to Mark. I'm working with Mark right now on a deal, on a refi for somebody. So again, working with mortgage brokers, and some of these notes can be helpful. Referring people to try to sketch out your profit on those deals. All right, let's see here. So opportunity. Let's get back to that. This is the opportunity in my mind. The opportunity is notes non-performing and performing, mostly non-performing. The opportunity is to systematically begin processing or contacting some of these landlords. By the way, and it might come up on the screen here, I've been doing target mentoring with folks. I've mentioned this a number of times. Some of you have taken advantage of it. I'm working with a couple of people right now on how to buy your first rental. I've worked with people on how to write private cash. I've worked with people on how to generate leads. I got a great little program that I've worked with people how to retire as a millionaire using your self-directed IRA. Folks, self-directed IRA is probably one of the greatest tools I ever was introduced to in my career. It is absolutely something that I still pinch myself every now and then, understanding how to use that and how to build up income, funds, principal in my retirement account. I paid $5,000 back in 2001 or so for a seminar in Las Vegas. It was the absolute best $5,000 I ever spent in my life. Had a great trip, and I learned things that I never knew about, and literally it's been a game changer for me outside of my real estate investment business. Combining that with understanding self-directed IRA for myself, my kids, and so forth, it's been absolutely a game changer. And so I do some of these target mentoring, okay, on these subjects. These are short, they are inexpensive, they will be invaluable to you. You'll get a lot of great information. And if you're interested in any of those, any subject, you can just text mentors on the screen to my cell phone, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about these. We can do these in person. We can do these over Zoom. But right now, the opportunity is in these areas: non-performing notes and evictions, meaning if you want to learn from me what we're doing, exactly what we're doing right here in this office, a beautiful office in downtown Rockville, or suburbs of Rockville, on how we are systematically communicating with landlords and targeting and narrowing and really focusing in on areas that we want to own houses in, let's get together. Let's spend those 3 1-hour sessions, and we can really hone in and help you figure out a very good, tight marketing plan for the next 6 months to a year. And then foreclosures, you need to be prepared now. You need to understand online auctions. You need to understand the foreclosure process. Some of you through the questions clearly do, and that's great. You're going to be able to use that knowledge in the next 12 to 18 months to pick up some great opportunities. You also have to take it a step further. You have to take it to the bankruptcy court. I got a call the other day from the bankruptcy trustee. He referred me to a realtor. Realtor is going to be doing some properties down in Southern Maryland. I'm trying to get ahead of it. I'm trying to get ahead of his listing and see where I can focus in on those bankrupt properties. Folks, all of this is happening right in front of us. And if you're just relying on a wholesaler to send you an email blast with the greatest next deal in the world, you're going to go hungry. You need to start generating some of these leads yourself. You need to know where to spend some of your time and energy. And really, this horrible year really has been tough. I don't know about you, but it's been tough. It's been tough just navigating it with family issues and relatives and parents and children in school and lack of travel. I mean, I haven't been on an airplane in a year, 13 months. That's hard. I love airports. I love hotels. So, I mean, people have lost businesses and lost income, and obviously family members. I mean, it's been a tough year. But folks, out of this type of situation, there does come opportunity. And as business owners and real estate investors, we need to look for those because we are solving people's issues. We are solving people's problems. Trust me, the property I bought in Temple Hills about 6 weeks ago, person was thrilled to get rid of this property. They were done with it. They made their money. They did not want to go through the process of renovating and selling it. They didn't have the money anymore. They were out. And I've been there too. I have a couple that I'm out. That sometimes I sell at a discount. I have one right now in Baltimore County. It's been rough. That I'm looking just to let someone else go in and try to make a few dollars. So these things happen, and if you're prepared and ready, I think you're going to find yourself in a very good position a year from now. Years go fast. So these are the opportunities. Focus on banks. Don't think that the big banks won't sell you these one-off notes. Find the attorneys, find out where they are. They might refer you to some smaller banks. They might refer you to some other hedge fund that owns notes. You don't know. You got to start networking. You got to start making phone calls. Number 2, and Charlie in our group, Charlie's been working the note business. So there's lots of different ways to come up with these opportunities through notes. Number two, the whole landlord. Oh, never been better. Landlords sometimes are tough to deal with, right? We're tough because we don't want to give up that hard-earned equity. But folks, some of us might not have a choice. Think about it. It's going to take a year to 2 years to get a problem tenant out of the property. You can buy that house today as long as you factor in that time and that damage to the property. Maybe you can buy them out. Maybe it'll go quicker than we all know. Who knows? Now's the time to strike. Now's the time to make your services available to those folks. And then finally, the foreclosure market. It's not happening yet. You can rest easy and get educated and get your money together and get your team together and get your investor group together. But it's coming. It's coming. It has to come. We haven't even talked about commercial property. So if you're interested in commercial property, that's a whole nother ball of wax. Folks, if I can help you in any way, just text mentor 301-943-5535. I'll call you up. We'll discuss it. If it works for you, great. If not, we'll still be friends, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. It's been a year. As I said, I miss you all. I wish we could get together soon, and maybe we will. Still don't know about that. I hope all of you that can are getting vaccinated, getting out there, doing good real estate deals. If I can help you in any way, we are partnering, we are buying, we are wholesaling. Reach out to me. If you just want to talk, grab a cup of coffee. I'd love to. I am starved for more interaction with as many people as I possibly can because I miss that. I miss the interaction. A lot of you know I'm a little more old school. Social media is great, but it doesn't cut getting together with someone and looking them across the table and seeing how they're doing and seeing where we can make some money together. So if that's you and you want to reach out, happy to do that. Look forward to continuing our travels and our journey through this pandemic. Folks, take care. If there's no more questions, we'll be back with you and hope this was helpful. Let me know if it was. Let me know what we can do to be better at this. We are trying to be better, trying to get good subjects, trying to get really real data, real information to you, things that we're experiencing, things that are going through. So hopefully that helps you out. If you're experiencing some trouble with a bank and you want some dive a little deeper with me, see some of the things that I've been trying to do, let me know. I try to share some of that with you, but obviously there's limited time. So folks, take care. Good to miss the pizza and turkey wraps. Alex, I do too. We never thought those turkey wraps would taste so good, would they? But good talking to you. Again, 301-943-5535. Text mentor if I can help you. Love to help you, set up a plan for you, and work with you. Folks, take care. Go Maryland Terps. Watch that March Madness, and we'll be back with you next month. Take care, everybody.